Hey guys, because of you, the MC's channel is now over 1,000 subscribers and growing. We wanted to say thank you so much, and we're going to be putting up all of our most important shows for all the people who missed it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Let's go. This one was a good one. Watch.
This is take one. Hopefully there will only be one take. In his interview with Bill Maher, Wynton Marsalis compared a jazz band to the branches of government. According to Marsalis, it's really not a stretch. The checks and balances are the same. The drums are the executive branch, the jazz orchestra is the legislative branch, the bass player is the judicial branch, and logic and reason are like jazz solos. Marsalis also emphasized the importance of improvisation, in which he likened to the checks and balance system in the government. But government in reality is hard, and not an exercise often performed by jazz musicians. You guys know what I'm talking about. Hey guys, my name's Julia, and you're watching The MCs, music at the core of everything. And today we ask the question, can our government actually learn anything from jazz? Or is that just the rambling of an overzealous musician? Let's find out. First of all, why jazz in the first place? Well, jazz is often referred to as democracy in music because of the way it incorporates elements of improv and collaboration. In a jazz ensemble, all members are equal participants, and each has the opportunity to contribute their own ideas and creativity. I really do like that about jazz. I respect jazz musicians, and they're just really cool cats. And I probably sound really lame for saying that. Okay, let's move on. Winston compared each literal instrument to a branch of government. So let's see if it holds up. Drums might be considered the executive branch. And I'm gonna say, I think that our producer Doug just put that in there because he's a drummer. But no, I believe him. The drummer sets the tempo and keeps the band in time. Much like the executive branch of government, sets the agenda and keeps the other branches in line. The bass player in the band might be considered the judicial branch, because the role of the bass player is to provide a sense of balance and stability to the band. Similar to how the judicial branch balances the power between the legislative and executive branches. Dang, it's hard to say some of these. Legislative. Bleh. My dog is licking my ankles right now. She's very sweet, but also very distracting. I love you. Okay, she doesn't love me. Additionally, the bass player is often responsible for interpreting the chords and harmonic changes in the music. Much like the judicial branch is responsible for interpreting the law. Now, the bass player can also have a role as a soloist, but they still must follow the structure and the rules of the song, just like how the judicial branch must follow the laws and constitution. The next performers Marsalis mentions are the jazz orchestra, also known as the horn section. Don't put that in there, Doug. I swear if you put that in there. He considered them the legislative branch of a jazz band and are the main voice of the band. Similar to how the legislative branch is the main voice of the government. The horn section typically consists of trumpet, trombone, and saxophones. Oh my god, did I say saxophones? I meant saxophones. You're welcome. Additionally, the horn section can also be a driving force in the band. They are responsible for shaping the sound of the band and making it unique. Now look, all of this sounds great as a metaphorical explanation of the parts each instrument plays in a jazz band. But if we're being honest, it's derivative. The analogy only works in one direction, I mean, if we were to try to take anything useful from these analogies in order to learn something about setting up our new government, or to give a template for politicians to follow, they would be lost. I mean, I'm a little lost too. With derivative explanations or analogies, you can use any genre of music in any circumstance and really any instrument to derive an analogy that fits. Oh, you don't believe me? Well, let's take the Beatles, for example. John Lennon and Paul McCartney were like the executive branch, coming up with the big ideas and writing the majority of the songs. Now, George Harrison and Ringo Starr were like the legislative branch, adding their own creative input and helping to shape the final product. And just like how the judicial branch interprets the laws, the band's producer, George Martin, helped to interpret and shape their music in the recording studio. Bada bing, bada boom. Now, let's switch things up and look at a hip-hop group like A Tribe Called Quest. Q-Tip and Phife Dawg were like the executive branch, leading the group and writing the lyrics. Ali Shaheed Muhammad was like the legislative branch, producing the beats, adding his own musical input. Now, I am not one to throw shade on one of the greatest jazz musicians and educators of our generation. But I don't think this specific example of jazz as a model of democracy holds up. So instead of thinking of the role of each instrument of any single band, let's talk about the rules and constants found in jazz itself that every instrument has to follow, regardless of their individual responsibilities. These rules and constants are born from, born of, and define at its core jazz music. Let's begin. Pretend we just landed on a brand new planet with 500 different people from all over Earth, and we're now charged with writing the rules to form our brand new democracy. I pull out this great new book called The Rules and Historical Experience of Jazz, and I begin to read. Rule number 1. This will be me on that planet. Like, all of a sudden, I'm just gonna be like old-timey British. I'm just gonna show up and just be a totally different person. I'm not gonna be Julia, guys. I'm gonna be Julia. Rule number 1. Improvisation is a central component of jazz, and it allows musicians to express themselves in a way that is spontaneous and free-flowing. In a jazz performance, the musicians are bound by a strict score or sheet music that is purposefully written to be as liberal as possible in their interpretation, but giving foundational absolutes that keep the music unified and can only be built upon. You still need those guidelines for the music so that you can be with the band, you guys can still follow each other, but you get the creativity and you get the liberties to stray a bit from, what's on the page. Well, really stray a lot from what's on the page. In a jazz ensemble, each musician has an equal role to play, and everyone is encouraged to contribute their own ideas and creativity. So this means that no one musician is more important than any other, and everyone's input is valued and respected. This creates an environment of mutual respect and collaboration, which is essentially the success of any jazz performance. What can this teach us about democracy? Simple. When someone asks how shall we make our democracy today, your answer can literally be, each politician has an equal role to play. Everyone is encouraged to contribute their own ideas and creativity. No one politician is more important than any other, and everyone's input must be valued and respected as a rule, not a suggestion. And if you're not following these rules, you're not doing democracy right. That's definitive, not derivative. The Constitution we write should be made as a base document that is meant to leave room for interpretation and can only be built upon by the diversity of opinions. No one opinion can ever destroy the foundational absolutes that guide the rules of engagement. Rule number 2. Rule number 2. Jazz is defined by its ability to bring people together and to bridge cultural divides. The genre has a long history of incorporating diverse influence and styles, and it has always been a melting pot of different cultures and traditions. This ability to adapt and change has helped jazz to remain relevant and popular throughout the years, and it has allowed the genre to reach a global audience. As a rule, if you're not using this tenet of jazz as a platform for your new democracy and its long-term success, you're not doing democracy right. Just as jazz has evolved over time to incorporate new styles and influences, our political systems must also be able to adapt and change in order to remain relevant and effective. This may involve embracing new technologies, revising outdated laws and policies, or finding new ways to address pressing issues such as climate change, inequality, and social justice. By fostering a sense of shared purpose and common values, we can create a more cohesive and harmonious society that is better able to address the challenges of the modern world. Rule number 3. Jazz embodies the power of effective communication. Musicians have to be able to communicate with each other in order to coordinate and execute a successful performance. Ask any musician, and you'll find that communication also extends to the audience. The constituency, if you will. Here we can find another quote from the great Wynton Marsalis that shows us why he is considered not only one of the greatest jazz musicians of our time, but also one of the great musical philosophers as well. Music is always for the listener, but the first listener is always the musician. If we take that quote to its natural conclusion, the result of the performance depends on the integrity of the artist and the artist's responsiveness to and understanding of the audience they are performing for. This is so true. And as Wynton Marsalis said, the black hole in democracy is integrity. The great unspoken is integrity. When integrity is not first and foremost, it's quite palpable, but not visible. It's always there. And jazz highlights this because musicians and jazz always represent a high level of integrity. My name's Julia. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It really means the world to us. See you in the next video.